It came to pass, when all the people had completely crossed over the Jordan, that the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, Take for yourselves 12 men from the people, 1 man from every tribe, and command them, saying, Take for yourselves 12 stones from here, out of the midst of the Jordan, from the place where the priest's feet stood firm. You shall carry them over with you, and leave them in the lodging place where you lodge tonight. Then Joshua called the 12 men whom he had appointed for the children of Israel, 1 man from every tribe. And Joshua said to them, Cross over before the ark of the Lord your God, into the midst of the Jordan. And each one of you take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, that this may be a sign among you when your children ask in time to come, saying, What do these stones mean to you? Then you shall answer them, that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, when it passed over the Jordan. The waters of the Jordan were cut off. And these stones shall be for a memorial to the children of Israel forever. And the children of Israel did so, just as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones from the midst of the Jordan, as the Lord had spoken to Joshua, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, and carried them over with them to the place where they lodged, and laid them down there. Then Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests who bore the ark of the covenant stood, and they are there to this day. So the priests who bore the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan, until everything was finished that the Lord had commanded Joshua to speak to the people, according to all that Moses had commanded Joshua. And the people hurried and crossed over. Then it came to pass, when all the people had completely crossed over, that the ark of the Lord of the priests crossed over in the presence of the people. And the men of Reuben, the men of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh crossed over armed before the children of Israel, as Moses had spoken to them. About 40,000, prepared for war, crossed over before the Lord for battle, to the plains of Jericho. On the day the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they feared him, as they had feared Moses, all the days of his life. Then the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, Command the priests who bear the ark of the testimony to come up from the Jordan. Joshua therefore commanded the priests, saying, Come up from the Jordan. And it came to pass, when the priests who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord had come from the midst of the Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet touched the dry land, that the waters of the Jordan returned to the place and overflowed all its banks, as before. Now the people came up from the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they camped in Gilgal, on the east side of Jericho. And those 12 stones which they took up out of the Jordan, Joshua set up in Gilgal. Then he spoke to the children of Israel, saying, When your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, What are these stones? Then you shall let your children know, saying, Israel crossed over this Jordan on dry land. For the Lord your God dried up the waters in the Jordan before you, until you had crossed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up before us until we had crossed over, that all the peoples of the earth may know the hand of the Lord, that it is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever. My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we've shared together from Joshua chapter 4. The focus here is on the memorial stones. It really was a very dramatic event. It was dramatic when the children of Israel left Egypt and crossed the Red Sea, but this is equally as dramatic. There's not an enemy behind them this time, and there is not a great windstorm blowing the seas apart. It's not a stormy night, but it is simply the Lord leading them. the Ark of the Covenant going before them, and a much more peaceful process. Nevertheless, the Lord opening the way across an impenetrable barrier for the children of Israel to cross over. They were to set up a memorial, which they did at Gilmour. 12 stones were taken and placed in the Jordan, and 12 stones were taken from the Jordan and built into a memorial on the western side of the river, showing that the Lord had given them this land. The Lord had opened up the way for them. The emphasis is that it wasn't the nation that stepped into the river before it opened up. It was the priests bearing the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord, for it is the living Lord who opened the way for the children of Israel. And the purpose for building a memorial was that the children of Israel should always remember this remarkable thing that the Lord had done for them. Israel crossed over this Jordan on dry land. The Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan before you until you had crossed over, that all the peoples of the earth may know the hand of the Lord, that it is mighty, and that you may fear the Lord your God forever. We have these stories showing the power of the Lord. The Lord is not only powerful to do things, but he can lead his people to be in the right place at the right time to benefit from these mighty things that the Lord does. So you can say it just happened that the river dried up, but it doesn't happen all the time. It's not a regular thing. The children of Israel just happened to be there at the right time. Why were they there? Because the Lord had given instructions to Joshua that they should be there on that particular day, at that particular time. If we'd planned the adventure, we would have chosen a completely different time of the year when the river was not in flood. But notice, the children of Israel didn't balk at the Lord's command. They had learned to follow Moses, they've trusted Joshua, they did what Joshua said, and they experienced this wonderful crossing. We need to be conscious of that because the Lord is always working. Jesus affirmed that when the Pharisees complained that he healed a man at Bethesda on the Sabbath. And they said, this is work, you shouldn't work on the Sabbath. Well, Jesus hadn't been paid for healing him. The man didn't even know that it was Jesus who healed him. But yes, Jesus was working, and God is working. Although when God created the world, he rested on the seventh day. Ever since then, he has been working to maintain this world. You can't just build something and not maintain it. And God maintains this world. He keeps it going. And he maintains our lives and keeps us going. We need to recognize God's work all the time. He is mighty. He can do extraordinary things. But often those extraordinary things turn out to be matters of timing as much as anything else. And the Lord makes things to happen in his time, for he is the creator of time as well as of everything else. As well as the memorial stones, though, we also learn in this chapter that the soldiers from Gad, Reuben and Manasseh, 40,000 of them, accompanied the children of Israel, went over the Jordan before them to protect them from the enemies that lay ahead. And we also learn that this all happened on the 10th day of the first month, which was the same day of the month that Jesus came into Jerusalem, proclaiming himself king, just before Passover. We're also told the 12 stones were there to this day. That is, they were still there when the account was recorded, because these things were written by those who knew the events. They're not written down hundreds of years after. They're written down by those who witnessed the events, who have either seen these things themselves or have researched them and spoken to those who were there, and who know the details. And they were written that all the earth might know that the Lord saves his people.